First thing I'm going to do for this completing the square worded problem is draw a picture. So a farmer is building a rectangular enclosure against a barn. The barn forms one side. So let's draw the side of the barn and let's draw the rectangular enclosure. It says let the width, the sides perpendicular to the barn, so this is going to be the width, be x meters. And then obviously this is going to be the length. Now it wants us to write an expression for the enclosed area. How do we do that? Well, first of all, we have got a couple of equations we can set up. First of all, let's set up the equation to do with the perimeter of this enclosure. So this perimeter is simply going to be the length, which is this side here, plus 2 lots of x's. So it's just length plus 2x. And we know that adds up to 40 meters as per the question. Now, if we were to write this in terms of x in the future, we would like L to be completely eliminated. In order to do that, we are going to rearrange the formula so that we have L as the subject of the formula. So L is equal to 40 minus 2x. Then all we need to do is find the area. But instead of writing it in terms of L, we're going to write it completely in terms of x. So the area of this particular enclosure, or A of x, is going to be the length, which is 40 minus 2x, all multiplied by x, because the area is always the length times the width. And then if we were to expand this, we would get minus 2x squared plus 40x. Now we're going to do part 2 of the question. It wants us to complete the square. When we are completing the square of something, we want it to have it in the format of x minus h plus k. And we can have a coefficient of a in front where a can be positive or negative. If a is going to be negative, we are going to get a negative parabola, and therefore we are going to get a maximum. So we are expecting a therefore to be negative. This then helps you generate the maximum possible area because it gives you the coordinates of the vertex, which is going to be hk. So in this particular example, our x coordinate is going to give us the width of the enclosure, and our y coordinate is simply going to give us the area. So this question is effectively asking us what value of x, so what width is going to generate the maximum area. So we need to start completing the square, and I also need to include the square symbol here for it to make sense. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the factor of minus 2. Then we're going to start completing the square of what's inside the brackets. How do we do this? Well, what we need to do is find half the coefficient of minus 20, which is going to be minus 10. And then we can put x minus 10 squared in brackets. And all we need to do to complete the next step is work out what is going to be added or subtracted next to this repeated bracket. So we need to compare and contrast this bottom line to this line above. Basically, we're asking ourselves, if we were to expand this bracket to the power of 2, how similar would it be to this? Well, whenever we expand, these two terms are going to be generated and an additional term. So we are going to have x times x, which is going to give us x squared. That's what happens when we multiply x and x together. This is a way of expanding double brackets. And then obviously we need to work out what's going to happen when we multiply minus 10 by x, x by minus 10, and then finally minus 10 and minus 10. So the result of these double brackets being multiplied together is minus 10x, minus 10x, and then finally plus 100. Now if we combine and simplify those terms, we would have x squared minus 20x plus 100. So we've got an additional number of plus 100. So to make sure that this line and this line is equivalent, all we have to do is minus that additional 100. The final step is to use this factor of minus 2 and apply it to both things in the bracket. So we're going to have minus 2x minus 10 squared, which is the first thing in the overarching brackets, and then minus 2 times minus 100, which is going to be plus 200. So if we were to write this formula into the maximum coordinates, which is hk, all we would do is take what h is, which is going to be 10, because we take whatever this is and we change the sign. And then we're going to take whatever this number is here, which is 200. So that basically tells us that at the value of x equals 10, we are going to get a maximum area of 200. If we were to pictorially draw this, this is to suggest that the original question and the completed the square format, the quadratic is going to look like this, where we have got a quadratic relationship between the width of x and the area of x, where at some point a maximum occurs, which happens to be at 10, 200. And hopefully you'll see this in context now for part 3. So part 3 says to find the corresponding length. Well, we know the enclosure looks like this, and we know that this is part of the barn. So if we're going to say the width is 10, this is going to be 10, this is going to be 10, and then all we need to do is find the length. We know that these 3 pieces of fence adds to 40, so it's just a simple equation. 40 equals 2 lots of 10, which is 20, plus 1 lots of the length, because we've only got 3 sides to this enclosure, so the length is simply 20.